Just no one signed in, right? No one. We're going to call this meeting to order. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Item 2.0, approval of today's agenda. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the agenda be approved.
It's been motioned. Do we have any questions on the motion? Do we have all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Sorry, I did that in the wrong order. Any questions or comments? Not, it has passed. Item 3.0, approval of the December 9th, 2024 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
I move that the agenda from the December meeting be approved.
We have a second?
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Item 5.0, approval of consent agenda. Item 5.1, approval of mandatory referral, item 2024M 009AB-001, a proposal to abandon a portion of alley number 1881 from Joyner Avenue to alley number 1879, requested by property owner. Item 5.2, CD19, authorization for new vehicle size restriction to trucks over 16,000 pounds on 4th Avenue North between Jefferson Street and Monroe Street, and also on 5th Avenue North between Jefferson Street and Monroe Street, requested by NDOT. 5.3, authorization for a new valet permit for caption by Hyatt downtown, Nashville at 118 12th Avenue South, requested by Parking Management Company. And 5.4, authorization for free parking for NDOT parking enforcement officers in Metro Courthouse parking garage, requested by NDOT. Any of these items need to be pulled out of the consent agenda?
5.2 and 5.3 I have questions on.
Any others? Okay, we're going to move item 5.2 and 5.3 to the regular agenda. So do I have a motion to approve item 5.0, 5.1 and 5.4 under the consent agenda?
Motion to move.
We have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Items 5.1 and 5.2 have passed. We'll slide down to the regular agenda and we'll start with item 5.2, authorization for new vehicle size restriction, no trucks over 16,000 pounds on 4th Avenue North between Jefferson Street and Monroe Street, and also on 5th Avenue North between Jefferson Street and Monroe Street, requested by NDOT. Mr. Smith, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. This request came to us via Hub Nashville, and the district council member asked if we could look at some of the traffic and parking issues that were there on 4th and 5th Avenues north between Jefferson and Monroe. The streets are not exactly narrow streets, but they are wider than the 30 feet that means that we have to go to traffic and parking. But we do not wish to remove parking there. But when they are loaded on both sides and a truck is moving through those streets, it does generally result in yield flow conditions. We looked at other streets in the area. There's an existing truck restriction on Monroe, and we feel like a truck restriction could be accommodated. And the trucks that are trying to get through this area could use Third, and they could also use Jefferson. And of course, delivery trucks are exempt from this truck restriction.
Any questions from commissioners?
I just about answered the questions I had. Specifically, I was wondering about a future building in the area.
That- Said my-
All right. The code says that delivery vehicles are exempt, but they should take the most direct route in and out of the job site.
That answers my questions.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? It's been motioned and second. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 5.2 has passed. Item 5.3, authorization for a new valet permit for Caption by Hyatt downtown Nashville at 118 12th Avenue South, requested by Parking Management. You have the floor. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Emmanuel Matias with NDOT. So yes, this is a new development that is looking to have a valet service approved today. They have a cutout in the setup, and the garage itself that is connected to the building would be the one where they would store the vehicles, which is a fairly short drive. The hotel itself has 210 rooms. We anticipate at max around 50 cars at peak, which is usually not a lot. So we didn't assume or predict that it would impact right-of-way traffic to a large extent. But as usual, we still monitor it. And as this permit and valet, as every other one, would still be subject to 3 violations for us to bring it in front of your attention and see if it would be revoked or if you would choose to revoke it or not. So this is a new building, and they are looking to get the valet approved so that they can start operating as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmy. Any questions from commissioners? No questions? We have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a second? It's been first and second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item 5.3 has passed. Regular 6.0, regular agenda. Item 6.1, authorization to relocate existing traffic signal from Harding Pike and Kenner Avenue to Harding Pike and Ridgefield Way, requested by KCI. Mr. Doyle, please state your name for the record. You have the floor.
My name is Devin Doyle. I'm the Assistant Chief Engineer over the Development Services Team and Right-of-Way Permitting Office with NDOT. This request, if any of you are familiar with the Harding Road corridor, this request really has its origins back to a transportation study that was originally done in around 2005. There was an urban design overlay that was approved over the commercial properties in the northeast and southeast quadrants of this intersection. It's the intersection of Harding Road and Woodmont White Bridge. An urban design overlay, what it does is it modifies the development entitlements for properties. Generally speaking, it changes to provisions that accommodate more mixed use. So kind of creating a mixture of commercial and residential type developments, offices, restaurants, things of that nature. As part of that study, there were a number of recommendations that were made. One of the most prominent was that in order to accommodate future development and development changes at this intersection, that the traffic signal that's currently located at the intersection of Harding Road and Kenner, which is approximately 350 feet away from the congested intersection of Woodmont and White Bridge, where the red X is on your diagram, that traffic signal should be relocated to the east at the newly constructed intersection of Ridgefield Court. And if you look on the diagram, and I apologize, I don't have a PowerPoint where I could show you more detail, but if you look on the attached diagram, the intersection to the left that has the little flared right turn movements, that's the intersection of Harding Road and Woodmont, White Bridge. Where the red X is the existing intersection and the existing traffic signal of Harding Road and Kenner. Thank you. There was another traffic signal to the east that is at the Woodlawn intersection. And so through the process of developing the urban design overlay, it required newly constructed access points and roadways, and that is highlighted by the yellow arrow. And so it was always anticipated that this traffic signal, as development occurs, would be relocated. And between 2022 and 2023, we had a number of properties that were looking to redevelop, including Belmead Plaza. There were redevelopment plans for what we call the Harding Town Center. That's primarily the UDO. And then we were also looking at what has historically been the Belmead Theater site, redevelopment of that site as well. NDOT, working with planning, required a comprehensive update to that transportation study, and that recommended improvement to relocate this signal was carried forward through that study. Right now, the proximity of the intersections of Kenner to the intersection of Woodmont, because there's such a heavy inbound movement, it doesn't operate well if you're familiar with the area. And so increasing the separation between those two traffic signals, as demonstrated in the transportation study, will have a significant beneficial impact to the operation of the Harding Road corridor. So NDOT supports this request. And there were a number of conditions that were requested of the developer. They're listed in your packet and on the slide, A through E. Basically, the cost of the design and the relocation of this traffic signal and all other efforts will be borne by a development partner with the city. And I can take any questions. I know the development team, their transportation engineers, the owner, and their attorneys are here as well. If you all have any questions that I may not be able to answer.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Go ahead.
So I guess my question is, reading through the conditions and the way it's written is the applicant will pay for the costs. And I understand the intent is to have it be the construction team. And so two parts of this question are, that, like, the applicant, when we're looking at our agenda, and maybe this is like legal, isn't that NDOT bringing the piece to us?
When you say piece, you mean
Like,
the conditions or?
We're approving the authorization to relocate the existing traffic signal, and the applicant requesting that is currently NDOT. And so I'm just I just want to make sure like there's clarity of NDOT is requesting this, but the applicant in this case, in the conditions, is the development team.
Yes, that's correct. And Devin, please correct us if we're wrong, but, or Andrew, but when you refer to the applicant in the packet, the applicant means the developer who's applied for the NDOT permits,
That's correct.
right?
NDOT is not applying for a signal relocation. NDOT has received an application to relocate the signal, so the applicant is the development team.
Okay. So would KCI be the applicant in this one, since that's what's listed on the agenda?
I think there's go ahead.
I was just going to say, typically for, I think development-related items, frequently the engineers will bring those items on behalf of the developer or the development team. So KCI has submitted the request on behalf of, I would say, H.G. Hill Partners, who owns the Harding Town Center, or a large portion of the Harding Town Center site.
And then the second part of the question, I guess, if we think that that's okay, the way it's written in the conditions, I mean, are we, as this body, able to include conditions where people are paying for things?
That'd be a legal question.
I think we have to hear what conditions you're proposing to be able to answer
I mean,
that question.
the condition A is the applicant will pay for all the costs associated with design, engineering, construction of the traffic light and intersection. The applicant is B is they'll pay for the costs associated with the design, engineering, construction. So it's two intersections and they're paying for both of them.
My understanding is that's correct, and that's probably been worked out between NDOT and the developer too.
That's correct, and that's typically the way it is. It's conditioned upon our approval in concert with this. I think there was a desire to associate these conditions with the approval of this board or this commission, since it can't happen without, or won't happen without the participation of the developer and their agreement to implement these changes.
Chair, may I ask a clarifying question, please? Commissioner Kornatek, were you asking to add new conditions?
No, just the
Okay.
conditions that are listed. And that's,
Okay,
I totally understand that from NDOT's perspective, they're not going to move forward unless there is an agreement between the developer and that team. But from the body's standpoint, I didn't know that we could put conditions on these that would then require a developer to pay for something.
Just to add on, it says the analysis done, it says May of 2005.
That was the original
Well,
analysis.
it sounds like that a part of the UDO included some of these. I mean, the light was approved to be relocated back in 2005. Now that we're saying there's a lot of these projects are going based on that UDO condition, it's applicable to relocate the light as associated with the cost of the project. So were these conditions recent, or was this a part of the UDO that was granted back in 2005? It's in the analysis portion of our packet.
So these conditions were expected to be completed by various partners on the private development side, and as were many of the conditions or recommendations that were in the initial study. I mean, this is the common practice of development, that when redevelopment occurs and the impact of that development is analyzed, that the burden of paying and implementing the improvements necessary to mitigate that, it falls on the shoulders. So I think there was a feeling on behalf of the department to ensure that these conditions were recognized and made part of the recommendation of this body. I was trying to look at what the other, so I think they were NDOT is looking for an assurance that all of the transportation improvements that are associated and affiliated with this improvement would be implemented. I'm not sure if I'm helping or not.
I think the question from the commissioner is, does this body is it in its purview to approve it with conditions related to cost?
Yeah, and I'll just add too, I mean, we've had other requests for lights come in and we've been told before, don't worry about the cost of it. You're just approving the location of it. The financing is beyond our scope. So I just wanted to make sure that we were okay.
This gentleman, I'll let him introduce himself, but this is Doug Sloan. He's the attorney representing the H.G. Hill Group.
Hey, please, welcome. Please state your name for the record prior to speaking.
Yes, my name's Doug Sloan. I work for Thompson Burton and am representing H.G. Hill Realty. But to answer your question, these were conditions, as Devin has pointed out, that were in part laid out within the UDO that was approved in 2005 as part of how this UDO would function. The UDO itself has an internal road system that is supposed to connect here at Ridgeview. As we got to a point after the more recent traffic study that reemphasized the need for this change so that it improved traffic through there, we worked with NDOT and with the legal department, and Tom Cross, the legal department, to work out the language of these conditions. So they were negotiated, and they are contingent upon this body approving the move. If y'all agree that it should move, then these conditions would apply, and the conditions are really just clarifying a lot of what's already laid out in the UDO. They're not new conditions that are just being created, but they were negotiated conditions for my client to pay to move the light.
Does that help answer your question?
I mean, it seems like nobody else has an issue with those being there. I totally get that this is a normal standard practice of having conditions to do this. I know that we have plenty of ways to do that. I just didn't know that this body would include those conditions in our approval, but if everybody else is okay with it, we think it's okay.
My understanding is that the UDO was approved in 2005 that accompanied various conditions. We have since updated the traffic study, which justifies what was found in 2005, and this body needs to approve the relocation of the signal, and it just so happens that this relocation is accompanied with some existing conditions that were agreed upon and negotiated when the UDO was approved.
I would say that's correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
What happens at the area where the old traffic control signal was located?
So that intersection will be converted to a right in and right out operation. Part of the construction plans will construct a raised median at that intersection, so that movements into and out of Kenner will be limited to right turns, as well as, I guess, what's referred to sometimes as Old White Bridge Road on the north side.
And that's a part of this same.
That's a part of this as well, right?
Just driving through there is my assumption that intersection's out of compliance currently anyway.
That's correct. That's correct.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 6.1 is passed. Thank you for your input. 7.0 unfinished business. 7.1 approval of TPAC rideshare pilot. Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Chairman, there's an item 6.2.
Oh, sorry. I checked over it.
However.
Yeah, my bad. I put notes over it. We'll revert back to item 6.2. Connect Downtown update by Mr. Schultz and Ms. Matheson. Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
My name is Brent Schultz. I'm the Connect Downtown Coordinator, and I'm here to give you a PowerPoint presentation on kind of where we are. First, I want to kind of take you through first when he turns the slide on there. Go to the next slide. Or do you have a clicker for me so I can? Batteries working. Doesn't look like it's working. There you go. Maybe the battery died. you want to just, you guys advance the slides and I'll keep talking? We're going to try, the clicker's not working here, so I'll have them advance the slides and take you through. I'm kind of going to take you through just a little history, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time there, but then I'm going to take you through kind of status report, what's going on with the projects, and then what do I think should be happening next. We've been working on that for a while, so you can go to the next slide. So to take you back, Connect Downtown Action Plan was really identified by the Metro Nashville Transportation Plan in 2020. It was recognizing that all modes of travel in our downtown are slowing to a crawl. You've all seen that there. And the peak, especially peak hours, posing specific issues with emergency vehicles and long-term growth and the quality of life downtown. It's complementary to the Imagine East Bank and River North project. And, you know, I remember being in California watching this all happening here, and I was just blown away at the amount of growth in the downtown. 365% from 2013 to 2023. 1.7 million square feet of office space under construction. The amount of visitors. I worked in Anaheim, where I'm really keen to watching visitors. That's really important to cities like Anaheim, cities like Nashville. It's just, as you all know, just growing tremendously. Next slide. I just wanted to show you the boundaries of the Connect Downtown. It's pretty much inside the loop with the exception of, as you can see, Gulch, Pytown, Rutledge, East. And that's what my responsibility is to work on that. Next slide. With you all. So it's one thing I like to stress to people, it's a 10-year plan. There's 106 projects in there. They are best practice. I've seen them across the country. I saw this in an APA conference and saw Marty and saw you had an opening and said, please let me come work with you. I want to work on that plan. I was so impressed by it. So next slide. So what were the challenges? People are stuck in traffic. Travel options don't match desires. Transit is slow. Loading space is limited. You know, when I'm putting in the crowds, I just would stop and watch Broadway and watch those poor drivers trying to get deliveries in. I can see what the problems are there. So, this planning effort really was NDOT working with WeGo, TDOT, and Nashville Downtown Partnership, as well as a bunch of key stakeholders. I'm sure a lot of you worked on this plan here tonight. Next slide. So the Connect Downtown, what were the big 5 moves that it's talking about? It's talking about managing congestion, upgrading our traffic signals, getting the TMC up and running, getting those signals connected. It talks about that. It talks about advancing Vision Zero. There's a lot of safety studies that are going on downtown about vehicle speed, intersections that need new signals, and a lot of work's already been going on that even before this. So, and then what's the third big move? Prioritizing buses on key corridors and increasing the amount of service provided faster and moving at reliable speeds. And you'll see, I'll show you the plan that shows that there's an inner loop. Very great idea, and we've got to start designing that. And then big move 4 would be create complete networks, which is really developing safe, separated, and connected walking, rolling, biking, and scooting facilities to help people of all ages move about the downtown. It's not, I went and, I've heard about Commerce, the number in the bike lane there. They're not connected to anything. There's a whole connected network there to make that all connect to north, south, east, and west. That's very impressive, and I'm excited to work on that. Next slide. So what is the overall, I love that slide because it kind of shows you all the transit priority lanes. It shows the frequent the bus routes that are coming in there. They're numbered on the north, south, and east, west out at the corners of that slide. It shows you the queue jumps and how that transit lane will just keep moving people north, south, and east, west about the downtown. I'm sure you all know why this is important. You've added 20,000 people to the downtown in the last 15 years. And, I just saw a report from the planning department. We're going to add another 20,000 based on the progress that they're seeing. With that and all the events and Nissan and who knows what else is coming downtown, we're going to need to continue to make improvements. And then also, up there to the right, flexible curb is really important. I'm starting to work on that with Andrew and Emmy about giving more loading space for the businesses down there, giving more places for people to park, and flexing it so it's flexibly used. And that's a great plan. Next. And just wanted to remind everybody about the phases. There's phase 1, 2, and 3. We're right now in phase 1 and 2. I'm working on projects there, and even ones that go out to 2030. We got to get going now and start planning them out. Next slide. So the first one is flexible curb, deliveries and loading service activities, passenger loading, taxi ride hailing, and tour bus pickup and drop-off areas. You're going to see that TPAC one tonight. That's a requirement of the Connect Downtown plan. We need to look at that. You've seen everywhere across the country how airports are doing this. They're separating their ride shares from the drop-off area. Well, that's kind of like what we're trying to do. We're trying to work with our consultants and identify areas. And this TPAC first one will give us some data on how that worked. Next slide. So this is the flexible curb early morning, really 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. It shows you what should happen on all the curbs. We've not implemented all of this yet. Some of it, but not all of it. And I'm going to start those meetings here in 2025 with Andrew, Emmy, and his team and their teams to start implementing this. So next slide. And then what happens at night, it kind of reverts. Everything goes to tour bus drop-offs, passenger load. You know what happens there. We want to get our clientele, our customers that are down there to that place, get them in easier, get them out easier. And that's what flexible curb is hoping to solve, some of that congestion that happens in the street. And next slide. So phase 1 is manage congestion. Nashville, the TMC, we need to get that done. And it's in and done. I hope some of you have seen that facility, and it is in there. It's working with WeGo and partnering to implement the transit priority signals, queue jumps, and then sections of the bus-only lanes and on 3rd and 4th. We're starting those discussions. And then NDOT will move quickly to build mobility lanes. One of my big things this year is getting some of those mobility lanes redone. Commerce, Denumbrian, 7th. Now we can start connecting that south end and others. And now I've not gone through your project initiation or charter process yet. I'm getting queued up to do that. And once I learn it all with our great planning staff here, I'm sure we'll get those going. That's at least my plan. And I know it's a 10-year plan. I've been told I got 5 years to get it done. So maybe they're looking at my white hair and going, hurry up, So, okay, next slide. So that's phase 1. And that kind of shows phase 1. You can see all the mobility lanes, the transit corridors, the queue jumps in there. It's those dotted blue lines and where they go. So I look at that a lot and how we can get that done. So next slide. And then this phase 2, that's 2027 to 2029. And there's congestion management things, moving more people, creating complete networks. And go to that next slide because that kind of shows you. And there's how you're starting to see now, we're starting to get that transit corridor in and around to the north and to the west, and then down south to the new Sobro Mobility Center. And then you're making more connections of those bike lanes to the north, the dotted dark blue lines. Next slide. And then here's phase 3. Again, there's more managed congestion, move more people, create complete networks. I like to go to the slides. Next slide. Now you can see working off to the southeast, we're getting that transit corridor done over there, connecting back up, and then back to the East Bank Mobility Center, which is not designed yet, and then back to WeGo Central. So you can see it going WeGo Central around Mobility. Now we could really, through shuttles, through the buses, we could move people north and south inside the loop. And so next slide. Now I just wanted to show you some pictures of that transit priority corridor, and you can see how the queue jump works, one of the big things is that, the bus slows down because of traffic. We want to give it that bus the ability to keep moving and move its customers quickly, so hopefully more people will use our bus services with WeGo. And I'm sure you've seen, or maybe you've seen this in your travels. Next slide. And then here's just focus on mobility lanes. I know I'm giving you a lot on phase one. Here's the next, go to the next slide. So you'll see it's calling out A and B to do commerce, the redesign of commerce and get that connected. It's also showing Denumbrian, getting that one connected. And those are two key ones I want to work on, and whatever else I can get going, it's A, B, C, D, E, and then connect that whole system. Next slide. And then here's the mobility lanes for 2027 through 2029. You can go to that next slide. And by the way, I can send you all copies of this if you'd like it after the, actually I have some copies I brought if you want them before you go. So, and again, now you'll start seeing how it's moving. There's a few ones to the south there, the dotted lines, and then it's moving north. So, next slide. And then the 2030 plus is the next slide. Let's go to that. And you can see it's finishing up out on the edges and then connecting down there to the south. Next slide. So you're really, it's really pulling together. If you look at that plan, it's pulling together the outer reaches, far out to the north, south, east, west into our downtown. It's creating a hub and a spoke to get everybody down and circulate around through our downtown. So, and let me go to the next slide because I love see, that shows you, I love those arrows every time they do that because it shows you the connections and how they're trying to pull things together. It was, your consultants did a good job, I feel, after reading this many times, to improve the transportation, to improve safety. And but next, I want to go to the next slide because I wanted to talk to you about. I've got a draft of the Connect Downtown Action Plan status for 1 and 2. The colored is everything that we got to get done by 2026. I'm going to hopefully soon post that on the web. Marty's looking at giving it, my boss, his final reviews, and I want to put that out so everybody knows where everything is. And let me go to the next slide because I did a little summary there. So there's 103 projects on that project list. The ones that need to be done in phase 1 and 2, there's 65. The 2 that are completed is the TMC's up and running and the 2nd Avenue rebuild's up and running. But 15 are underway. We're doing the adaptive signals planning. Robert and his group is working on that. We've got our Devon's groups working on the access management policy with planning staff. That's that, where do you put the garage access, so it doesn't congest our streets and stop the circulation there. And that's been a problem in the past. The Nashville connector, the TDM plan that Megan, that's key, is trying to work on plans to get people out of their cars and try to use other means to get in and out of the downtown. We gotta, we just don't have a lot of real estate for widening our roads. We have the same problem as a lot of places I've worked. How do we get people out of cars? TDM is the way you do it. That's the way we did it in my background in the past, and I think she's going to do a great job with that. Event management planning, we're working with Miranda and HDR and Fairpoint on a plan, and we're working with special events management. How do we get people in and out for Nissan and other events, and when Ascension's going and the Bridgestone's going, how do we do that more efficiently? So we're having those discussions. There's some neat, exciting things happening. I want to tell you a side note. We were giving a presentation, and I always end my presentation with, if you've got any other ideas other than these, please let me know. Somebody who owns a very good bus shuttle company came and he said, I'm thinking of doing shuttles every day from BNA to your downtown and back to Cool Springs and back to the airport. I want to bring 50 to 80 people a day in that. I go, we want to talk to you. We want to get those people out of cars, and we want to get them on that bus or shuttle into the downtown, because we could work with you on a place for your bus to stop and get those people into their hotels or get them to where they're going downtown. So anyway, that was exciting. Intersection safety audits, that's ongoing. Unsignalized crossing improvements is ongoing. There's a number of those that have been done. Vision Zero capital projects and high injury network evaluation, that's ongoing, and Val and Anna and others do improvements on that. I've been working on, when I got here, Megan and I jumped on the bike corrals. We've got over 100 now installed. We can park 1,658 scooters now. TD's getting all those, Tim's getting all those, latitude, longitude of all those. We got 100 places for bikes to park. I just ordered 200 new bike racks so I can finish off downtown. And what do I got to do? 575 bike parking spaces, 1,658. We will have that now for downtown. We're going to get that done. And then I'm going to move to Germantown and the Gulch. We're going to get that done. One nice thing about that, we've just been in meetings with Tim, and I've given Tim the latitude, longitude, and we're giving it to all the bike and scooter companies. And I don't know what's happening, but when I walk out there, they're parking them there. So it's kind of neat to see they're putting them in our corrals. So hopefully that will continue on. What's the next one? Oh, the Jefferson Street mobility lanes. I believe those are done and ready to go. And then, but what do we want to do next? This is, I want to give a little taste for what I'm thinking about. Continue all those safety improvements. Safety is what we got to focus on with downtown. Somehow help, Robert White and his team to get funding so they can connect all those 110 signals. Because once he's got those, they're controlling now. Police controls them, as you know, for events. And they work with the TMC. But once that system's in place, you're going to see a lot of improvement to your system. I had that system in California. It's amazing what it can do to move traffic and big events around. I used to watch it around Disneyland, the convention center, what they could do to move people. And that's a great system you're doing. The access management policy, consolidating driveways and garage entrances, we got to get that done. The special event management strategies, we got to get that done. Rideshare pickup and drop off framework and locations, we have a consultant working on that. You're going to see our first one tonight, and we want to get that going to see how we should develop that programming. What do we learn from this one? I need to get the flexible curbs going and smart loading zone. We've had 4 stakeholder meetings with the downtown businesses, the delivery companies, and we're listening to them, and we're also we've talked to everybody to get our camera pole attachment agreements in the downtown. There's like 40 locations for that Broadway pilot. We want to get that going in the new year so we can start getting data on what really is happening at that curb. Is it really this that's causing the problem? What is causing? We know what it is. It's just an overloaded curb. But how can we better use that curb so that it's when a delivery company comes, they can deliver, and then when our customers come, they can drop off and they can get to where they need to go. So next thing up, we need to do, valet zone permits. The plan talks about studying those, looking at the ordinance and seeing, is that, and what are they doing to the circulation system out there? And is there anything we can do to improve it so that they're not congesting up the street? And maybe there's a way to consolidate some of them. And we're looking at that, and we'll have meetings with Andrew and Emmy to discuss that more. Then the next one up is 7th Avenue bike lane, a 2-way west curb and conversion to a 1-way north, except Church to Commerce. That's an important connection. 2nd Avenue and 3rd Avenue studies to do the conversions on those. That's an important one because that really starts moving people. And then the last one is start design, well, it's not last. We've got to get these all going concurrently. I need more people. Would you work with me, Megan? But there's so much to do. Start design discussions with WeGo on transit corridor projects, the Sobro Mobility Center, the West Side Transit Priority Corridor, and then James Robertson Corridor. We got to get those going. Next up is just please keep using Hub Nashville. I use it when I'm out there and I see lifting curbs and stuff. That's a great resource for everybody. And then here's the last slide with my contact information on it. I've added it up there. You've got my number that comes right to my cell, and plus the web link to the Connect Downtown plan. And I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you for your hard work and dedication to this. Any questions from commissioners?
Brent, thank you again for the hard work. he mentioned, just from the public safety side, as we're going ahead and planning, obviously the events of New Orleans is all on our minds. It's public safety. Continue to put those in the forefront as we're designing, as well as how do we get fire and police equipment in there if they need a calls. So once again, appreciate what you are doing, especially on the East Bank project as well. So look forward to working with you.
Where do we, I broke it.
I think we're working now.
Great. You mentioned you are doing presentations. What are the frequencies of those, and are those just getting the word out, or general pop type things, or how are we doing? I think the corrals are important information for the community here. How are we communicating to them as we complete certain projects to directly affect them?
We've been, we have a community outreach team in NDOT, and I've been keeping them updated on as we put them in. I've had to move. I move from project to project. I've got a map ready that I've been working with one of our staff, a GIS map, and I'll be giving that to that team to put out a notice on these things. Right now, and I've talked to a few of the bike clubs and stuff. I've let them know about where it is and what's going on. They know what's happening, but I do need to circle back with our outreach team and get that out, and also post it on our website so everybody has, because I have on my cell phone, I have the latitude, longitudes of every corral, what it can hold, and as we add to them, I go out and take a picture of it. I do the latitude, longitude, so we know exactly where everyone is. I'm also meeting with the merchants group downtown. I let them know what's going on with the corral projects or anything else I'm working with on smart loading zone. We have stakeholder meetings with the downtown groups on the smart loading zone project. Automotive goes to those, and our leadership team as we develop that program. We met with our legal counsel on that, and we hopefully soon will be back with you with that program and the fees and charges and things there for that curb to get that going. Hopefully that'll be soon. I'm just talking to everybody. Diana which I love. She's just getting me involved with everybody downtown, And I want to let you know, if you see something down there, and, even if it's not related to Connect Downtown, but there's something going on, let me know. I want to help make it better. The Hermitage called me up. They wanted another address for the loading area, and I was able to connect them with the planning department staff that does the addresses to get them another address. So I don't feel like I'm just here for Connect Downtown. I'm here to help anything and everything I can to make it be a success. The safety improvements that I know are probably forthcoming because of what happened down in Louisiana. I want to be a part of that, helping that happen. Met with the fire department before we did the corrals to make sure we aren't have any conflicts with the fire hydrants or the connections to the building. I've even made sure, when I personally have been going out there, if you see little white dots, that's where I've got corrals going in. Piero's gone out, and Andrew, they've kind of showed me where they want them to stay away from vaults and things. So I'm just kind of going everywhere and trying to get to know everybody. And I love it because I love people, and I love downtowns.
Great.
This is my third downtown. I love them.
We appreciate your attention to detail. On the ride share program, I know we're talking about TPAC next, but do y'all have a list, or are you anticipating areas next that we're going to target as pilots, or we're going to use TPAC as a pilot and then roll out the others based on that?
I'm looking at another one over on Denumber in the Circle, but I'm not ready to say, how that's going to come together. I've been talking to Megan about it. I've been talking to our consultant team a little bit about it and some of the staff about it, and talking to Uber and Lyft about it. They've got their criteria that they need too. And so but I am, the leadership in NDOT knows I'm working on those things. I'm hoping to get this TPAC project approved, Megan and I, and then learn what we can learn to make it better, and then start doing it in some other areas that make sense. If you have any areas, please tell me. We're going to hunt those down and look at them with everybody and see if they're possible to do.
Great. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I just want to say the one question I was going to have, and I'll just reiterate, there's 103 different projects.
103 in that blue list that's in the appendices.
And I really appreciate you working towards giving an update line by line so everybody can kind of see where things are. That's great. That's a great opportunity for people. If they do want to submit a comment, they can actually go see exactly what we're trying to do and if there's any status on where we're at. So I appreciate that.
And I appreciate when you see it, if you guys have comments like, Brent, add a little more detail here or there, I'd be happy to do it. I got it on my Excel spreadsheet. I can add to it or pull things out.
Great. Any other questions?
I mean, the one thing to add, for at least this group, if there's things that are going to come to us, it'd be nice to have a, long-term view of that. So if you could just mark them as TNP is going to be needed, that'd be great.
That's a good point. I will add that to it.
Well, that was a non-voting item. When are we expecting the next update? Do we decide quarterly, or do we?
I don't know.
As needed is fine. We don't need to put anything to it, but.
Obviously, I wouldn't do it unless you wanted
Sure.
more background on all this stuff. I could keep it to where are the projects, and how are we doing?
No, I like that. If there are no more questions, we'll move on to item 7.0, unfinished business. 7.1 is a approval of TPAC rideshare pilot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Megan Matson. I'm the Transportation Demand Management Program Coordinator. And so Brent and I work closely together because my program, the Transportation Demand Management Program called the Nashville Connector, really does go hand in hand with Connect Downtown. And so as Brent mentioned in his PowerPoint, one of the recommendations from Connect Downtown is to develop ride-share pilot zones, drop-off and pick-up locations. So this is the same PowerPoint that everyone saw from last month. I'll kind of just run through it. It doesn't need to be that in-depth. But essentially, we're trying to run a pilot program with the Tennessee Performing Arts Center to analyze a drop-off and pickup passenger rideshare zone from January 28th to February 23rd, 2025. And so we're working with HDR and Fairpoint Planning to kind of develop framework for what rideshare drop-off and pickup locations might look like throughout the rest of the downtown core. And so initially, the goal of this program is to enhance traffic flow, safety, and really reduce traffic congestion downtown. Next slide, please. And so, we want to streamline the process for rideshare vehicles. We want to reduce congestion. We want to minimize safety hazards, and then also create smoother access for TPAC attendees. And so, as Brent mentioned, this is just part of the recommendations for Connect Downtown. And so we're really trying to push the needle from that plan to make sure that we're following the recommendations. Next slide. And so this is some of the recommendations that they had in Connect Downtown. So they really found locations, and we'll look at a map at the next slide, but they do recommend pickup and drop-off locations, which will help us increase the amount of curb space. There was recommendations to require permits for taxis and ride-hail vehicles to use designated areas. I don't think we are there yet, but that's one of the recommendations. Also expanding the use of geofencing, which is what this pilot will do. So we'll have both Uber and Lyft have geofencing where the drop-off and pickup locations are. And so that's one of the hopefully lessons that we'll be able to use moving forward after the pilot. And then another recommendation is charging a fee for trips that begin and end in downtown Nashville. I don't think we're there yet either. But all of these things that we'll analyze from the pilot will help kind of push the needle to potentially those results. Next slide, please. And so Brent just had the same images on his PowerPoint, but I feel like the graphics demonstrate why we're doing what we're doing. And so as you can see in both the morning and the evening, it recognizes where potential pickup and drop-off zones might be. And so I could see that being a next step after this pilot
And we're going to reanalyze each one of those areas.
Yep, it's just kind of a recommended framework because we've all been on Broadway potentially on the weekend, and it causes a lot of traffic congestion when the rideshare companies are just dropping people off wherever. So this will help, hopefully from a safety component as well as a congestion component. So next slide, please. And so like I mentioned, the pilot program is going to go from January 28th to February 23rd, 2025, and it will have dedicated signed passenger loading zones, both before and after TPAC performances. TPAC Valet will operate as usual, and the rideshare companies will geofence their areas in the apps and direct passengers to go to either Zone 1 or Zone 2. And so NDOT will sign and monitor the zones, and then fines will be levied for noncompliance. Next slide, please. And so previously in December, we had a map, and based on the recommendations that we received from the December meeting, we kind of readjusted the map. And so as you can see in this map, it has both the WeGo stops near TPAC as well as the routes that we plan to kind of direct pedestrian traffic, both getting to and from TPAC. And so Zone 1 will be across the street at Dederick, and then Zone 2 will be on the same side of the road as TPAC. And then you can even see too how we're going to try to direct these rideshare companies in terms of driving in to the loading zones. So that's what those blue and yellow arrows are. Next slide, please. And so this is the map that we had last month. I think it still kind of demonstrates how we're going to try to move pedestrians and traffic. So next slide. And so these are the parking spaces. I think this is in Zone 1. And so we're asking the Traffic and Parking Commission today to approve using these 4 spaces for Zone 1, and then next slide, I think the 4 spaces on Zone 2. Next slide, please. And so estimated revenue lost is about $1,100. We will be using 9 spaces during the pilot program and essentially 20 show days while the spaces are being used. Next slide, please. And so It's a horrible graphic, but I feel like it helps. Just demonstrate what the calendar is going to look like for the spaces that we would need. And so essentially we need to block off all of the parking spaces 24 hours in advance to the show. And so based on TPAC's calendar, you know, we're going to block off the parking spaces for these amount of days if approved. And so as you can see though, there are still a few days where the parking spaces will be able to be used by the public. Next slide, please.
Okay.
There'll also be signage. TPAC will have signage at their facility as well, directing people to the zones.
This is a very much more appealing calendar, just pretty much showing again when we're proposing to use the spaces based on TPAC's performance calendar. Next slide, please. And so we kind of went through this. We don't really need to go through this. It's just another graphic. But these are all the shows that they have during the pilot program. So next slide, please. And then next slide, please. So it's essentially 4 weeks for the pilot. And then, so the next steps, we're here to ask today for approval to move forward with the TPAC rideshare pilot. And then hopefully we get the approval. And once that starts, we're going to start pushing out messaging both from NDOT's marketing perspective as well as TPAC's. And so I think we talked about this last month and just kind of how TPAC is going to communicate and how NDOT's going to communicate. So we'll do like a press release, we'll post it on our social media platforms, and kind of hopefully create some buzz around it. Next slide, please. And so NDOT's responsibilities during this pilot are going to be providing our messaging on our site, and then also providing marketing messaging for TPAC. We will have visible zone markers and monitor the adherence, and then just make sure that, you know, the rideshare companies are doing what they're supposed to do. Next slide, please. And then, so TPAC is going to partner with us. They're going to communicate to all of their performance attendees, Know Before You Go, a social media campaign, and then they're also going to help us get a post-event survey out where it will kind of help us analyze if this was successful or what, rideshare passengers' feedback was. Next slide, please. And I think that's it.
One last thing, I just wanted to thank Leon Socha is here with TPAC. I hope I said his name right. I probably messed that all up.
Leon.
And he's been great to work with. When Megan and I got involved with this, with Fairpoint and HDR, when we called him, he was right there. And they're very committed to this project. I'm excited to work together with them, and we want to make it a success, just like he does. So he's here if you have any questions. I also want to thank Brenda Smeck. She works with HDR, and she's been working on the special events project, which includes doing a framework for these, and they've been working on that. I want to thank her. She's here as well. So, but we're here to answer any of your questions, and our recommendation is, can I read it off?
Yeah.
Our staff's recommendation is that the Metropolitan Department of Traffic and Parking Commission by motion approve the TPAC rideshare pilot program as described in the TPAC rideshare pilot PowerPoint presentation submitted to the commission at the January 13, 2025 meeting, and that the commission further approves and authorizes the NDOT director and staff to take all actions necessary to implement the TPAC rideshare pilot program. And with that, we're here to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Commissioner Gibbs?
Two questions. One, there was mention of a trip fee, and then I'd asked before if there was consideration given to even the possibility of temporary crosswalks leading across the street into zones 1 and 2.
We don't have, I don't think we have any plan for any crosswalk attendees out there for these events. We don't have any staff to do that. Is that what you wanted?
No, I'm asking about actually putting in the striping so that it will be kind of a designated area for people to cross the street, since we're trying to funnel people to zones 1 and 2. And if they're over by TPAC, if memory serves, going into zone 1, they would have to cross the street. There's a bit of sidewalk there or concrete there that it would seem to me people would walk in that area, but going from there onto the street, you're asking people to look both ways and hope for the best.
Alls I can say to that, I'd like to, meet with our engineering staff, have them take a look at it and see, is there something we can do there? I'm not going to put him on the spot right now, but that's something I think we would look at. As far as, the other one was charging a fee. Was that what you?
There was mention in here about a trip fee.
That is one of the things that the Connect Down says we should look at. We're not recommending it with this first one.
It would seem to me that'd be a disincentive for people to try to adhere to this program then, if there was a trip fee associated with it.
I think it will, but I'm not sure. I want to run one of these, see what's happening, how many really use it, and then look, I want to look at that though. I think that's an idea we shouldn't just totally throw out, because we are, you are giving up some revenue to allow this pilot. So I do think it's something we should keep in our plan and look at that as we look at all these projects.
I think with that too, with Connect Downtown specifically, the consultants looked at nationwide best practices, and so that's how they came up with one of those recommendations. We're definitely not ready to do that yet, but I know that they gathered a lot of information from a lot of different markets, and that's potentially why that was in their plan.
All right, so I do have kind of a technical question about the data that's being collected. Do you all have an idea of the type of data elements that you're going to be collecting, and if that'll be shared with the public?
Great question. I think, and Miranda, I may need your help, but yeah.
Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Miranda Smack with HDR. So to answer the question about data, we're largely looking at traffic congestion information that we can get from data that the TMC already has access to. So we'll have access to congestion metrics on previous event days that will compare to when we have the rideshare zone pilot. Some of the feedback will also come from the TPAC survey that will get sent out to attendees after the event. So we'll be asking them questions like, how was their experience? Did they think that it improved rideshare or did not improve rideshare? If it improved general traffic downtown or not? So those are our key data points, is direct feedback from attendees, looking at congestion data that the TMC has access to. And then thirdly, I do think that we plan to have some people out in the field during at least the first few nights of the study. So hopefully they can give some firsthand feedback on how that goes.
I can tell you, my plan is working with Megan after it's done, pulling everybody back together and just kind of going through all those things that we want to collect and see what did everybody see. I want to go out there and look at it myself. I have an electric bike. I'm 15 minutes from this location. I'm going to go just sit there and watch it, see how it works.
I think one other hopeful partnership is with Uber and Lyft, and so we're hoping that we can collect feedback from the companies.
That's a good point.
So my question's kind of around the 24 hours of closing down the spaces. One, the cones, hopefully we can create a different system. They're really difficult to see as you're pulling up, and then I've had to get out of the car and then go, oh gosh, there's a cone there, and then read the cone. But people move the cones, people throw the cones. They're very temporary. It's a lot easier when it was a bagged meter. But I assume that if we this is a pilot, so this is a test, figuring that out. Long-term, when we set up a zone like this, would it be similar to how we have signage that says for these hours, this is parking, and then for these hours, this would be a loading zone? Is that what, like, future we're trying to work towards?
I can tell you, I've been on looking around at things and talking to some of our planning staff about that. And I actually found some signage that people were using in another city, and that you can put up with the loading and loading signs that says this is a ride share from these dates, these times. But, you know, I gotta talk to that guy over there and that guy over there and see if it meets, you know, the national standards. And but I like that. That's in the back of my mind, is if these are really successful, I'd love to have some permanent signage out there so people get used to it and know how to use it. I totally agree with you.
Did the rideshare companies, they send you to the loading and unloading zone electronically as well, right?
Yeah, they can geofence.
So along with the permanent signage, I mean, they're going to direct them to that area as well, correct?
Yeah, and I talked to both Ben Kemp and Uber and Sean and they're excited about it. They want to work with us on these sites, and they'd like to have designated areas to go to. And by the way, I did let them know, you know, about, as you know, on Commerce, we had an accident out there and somebody was blocking the lane. It was, not sure if it was Uber or Lyft, but it was one of them blocking a lane, and car veered around them and hit people on the curb. So that's a sense of urgency for me to try to get these going and see if we can't mitigate some of that somehow. You know, I know the downtown has got a lot of customers going to it using rideshare, but we really want to figure these out, see if they can work, and then in their contract, it's to come up with a framework for how these would work, and working with you all, and start implementing them in other places, and get Uber and Lyft to go to those designated places, not just everywhere.
Any other questions? Captain?
So the pilot program will be geofenced in those different locations?
Yes.
And I think just from the police department working special events, I think anytime event space and things are letting out at one time, dropping off at one time, anytime we can get the Ubers, Lyft, rideshare partners to go to one spot, it's easier for them to get in. It's easier for us to allow them to get out once we know where they're staging it. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll keep MMPD in the loop as we go on this. And
Yeah, that's a great point to add. So the zone 1 that is across the street, across Dedrick, there is an existing crosswalk right there that leads directly to that zone space. And there's MMPD staff, off-duty staff that work the TPAC, at least after post-events, to help traffic flow through there currently. So we do foresee that, you know, there'll be a heavy emphasis on pedestrian safety using that crosswalk, and there'll be cones down the center line of Dedrick to make sure that there's no U-turns or any unsafe movements, and to deter people from crossing Dedrick not at the crosswalks.
Any other yes, sir. Commissioner.
It's 4 parking spaces, zone 1, 5 parking spaces, zone 2. Is that enough? What kind of data went into creating that?
That was largely based on information from the rideshare companies themselves. We asked them in multiple stakeholder meetings with them about their recommended spaces. We know that TPAC, the majority of their attendees are not using rideshare. So we want to capture enough space where a few cars can pull in, get fully out of the roadway into the zone, and then exit promptly. So we feel like around 120 feet gives you space with, you know, an average car length of 20 feet to get a few cars in there at a time, load their passengers, and then pull out back into the lane afterwards. So that was based on just kind of engineering knowledge and then direct consultation with the rideshare companies.
Does that include the fire hydrant, or is that excluded?
That does include the fire hydrant in the zone 1 space. That's how there's 5 spaces for about
Gotcha.
120 feet on the south side, and then 4 spaces for about 120 feet on the north side.
Gotcha.
And is there any discussion with the rideshare companies to maybe reduce the amount of time that a driver would wait for a rider to influence, not having people being down the block, like, hey, let me go grab a drink, or I got 5 minutes, let me,
Right, I think at least the first few days we'll have staff out there working, and the idea, ultimately, we would love if it was similar to the airport where you're flagged on if your person's not actively there waiting for you. So I think that will be part of how we can look at the first few days when we have staffing, and then see if we need to continue that staffing ultimately, or if that is just something that we compare the first few days of the pilot, and then building our framework, a comparison of if we have staffing or don't have staffing.
What are the vending requirements on that street? Is vending allowed? Do we know?
Vending's not allowed when TPAC's there.
Okay.
And I think it's already in a zone we covered it, but when the event's there, I think in the code it says it can't be.
Can we review and just provide feedback on that I'm thinking about the corralling, and if there's a potential for vending to happen, we need to get ahead of that and just understand and review that during the pilot program so that we can implement, if there's a need, some things around that for the permanent solution.
We'll check into that.
We're funneling a lot of people to 2 spots, which is going to encourage vending potentially, but we want to make sure we get ahead of that. Not saying we restrict it, but just ensure that we're managing it in a way that's safe for pedestrians. Any other questions? So based on the information that we heard, do we have a motion for item 7.1?
motion to approve?
Can I ask a clarifying question on that?
Yes.
Sorry. Do we need to say it with what's written on our agenda, or what Brent had? He kind of read something a little bit longer.
So I'm going to ask legal to interject, but my opinion is that he read out loud what they were recommending, which is on record. So that is essentially what NDOT is recommending that we vote on.
Yes, I think this is the recommendation. It doesn't have to be explicitly stated as in the agenda. So I think he nicely printed this out for you if you want to read it.
Well, he read it out loud. Do I need to read it again prior to the motion, or is what him saying it okay?
I think as long as all of your members are clear on what the motion is, I think that's what's most important. So
I'll read it. It's not going to hurt.
So I think it's wise if he reads it in, just so that everyone's clear on what they're voting on.
Okay. So just to be clear, NDOT's recommendation for item 7.1, approval of TPAC rideshare pilot, the Metropolitan Traffic and Parking Commission, by motion, approved the TPAC rideshare pilot program as described in the TPAC rideshare pilot PowerPoint submitted to the commission at the January 13th, 2025 meeting, and that commission further approves and authorizes NDOT director and staff to take all actions necessary to implement the TPAC rideshare pilot program. Do we have a motion on that recommendation? Sorry.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the TPAC rideshare pilot plan.
Is there a second? It's been first and second. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any approve or any opposed? It is passed. We appreciate you for your hard work and
Thank
your
you.
presentation on this.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, you asked about vending around TPAC.
Yes.
And that's addressed in Metro Code 6, Chapter 6, 32060.
Chair,
And
if I
Tennessee
may.
Performing Arts Center is identified as one of the areas where the sale or offering of goods and services and things like that are restricted.
during TPAC's operation hours? It's restricted. Is there a parameter on that restriction?
On any date where an event has been duly scheduled in the Tennessee Performing Arts Center. So yes, it's during event days.
Great. Yes?
I just want to clarify, so Member Gibbs said that he made a motion to approve the pilot program, which is different than what you read. So it's fine, but just a point of clarification.
Yeah, it's approved the TPAC rideshare pilot program as described in the TPAC rideshare pilot PowerPoint.
Okay, it technically is the way that he stated it was an amendment to what you said, so as long as everyone is clear that what you voted on was what Chair Mason said and not what Mr. Gibbs said, because it was slightly different.
Yeah, I think the difference was the PowerPoint, our agenda referenced the PowerPoint from January 28th through February 20, no. That's the date.
Yeah, I think that's the dates of the pilot program. There's no date on the agenda.
A separate PowerPoint presentation is being provided separately from the report. Specific details of the pilot program will be supplied with the presentation. And that's all.
Oh, you're reading from the staff packet, not the agenda?
Yeah, I'm reading the staff packet.
Okay, I just want it to be clear, because technically he just approved the rideshare program, which was different than what the motion that you read. When he moved, when Member Gibbs moved, he said to approve the pilot program, which is different than what you said technically.
Okay. I mean, the recommendation says approve the rideshare pilot program.
Okay.
And then the agenda item is rideshare pilot program.
So is the motion that was carried just the approval of the pilot program? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
based on this recommendation.
Okay.
Is that what everybody else understood? The pilot?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If we could get this prior to, that would be great in the
And
future.
That language will be included in the minutes for next month's meeting as
Okay.
well.
Just so that we're all clear. Thank you for that. Anything else on that item?
Not at this time.
New business, so to Captain Proctor's point, I know that we're looking at some additional pedestrian safety measures related to the incident in New Orleans. Don't need any granular details, but at next month's meeting, if we could just get some high-level approaches that we're looking at to ensure that we're doing all we can to prevent and get ahead of something here, given our tourism and attraction here would be great. And that could be related to the Demonbreun Circle, Broadway, and just any other high-traffic areas that we need to look at to help as a new business item for next month. And then just want to commend NDOT on the communication and the response to the weather event we had Friday. I joked before the meeting, but there was just about all-day news coverage related to it, constant communication from the appropriate individuals between the mayor and NDOT and the fire department. I think that was great. I think getting ahead of it was great. I feel like the communication around it was outstanding compared to what it has been in the past. Love to see my kids in school, but we enjoyed it. So appreciate being able to understand, some of the sledding spots and how to get there and some of that stuff to get them out of the house. So just wanted to commend NDOT on that approach and response to the weather event on Friday. Any other new business?
For next meeting, could we maybe get an update on where we are with the Phase 2 smart parking rollout?
Anything else?
You do have another item,
Yeah.
9.1.
So item 9.0, other items, we did get some feedback, additional feedback in that we've got 14 responses, 79% are, 79% are comfortable with us changing the meeting time. I think we're gaining, I don't know, 5 people or more. But I feel like, this time seems to be good and we'd like to have a vote to move to this time permanently. But any other feedback from the commission on this would be great before we vote on it. If not, do we have a motion to move the traffic and parking meeting time to 2:30 moving forward?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Really? Yeah. It has passed. I want to welcome Captain Proctor here. Appreciate your input. Welcome to the commission. You're a valued piece to this puzzle as we continue to work through Nashville's growth and pedestrian safety. So welcome. And then with that,
With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. It's been adjourned. You want to oppose? You want to oppose that?
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.